For the record, Jack Tanner wanted it known that he wasn't having a good day. In fact, as he watched the last escape pod jettison from Nexus 9 station, leaving him behind with nothing but a half-eaten protein bar and a dwindling oxygen supply, he was having what might qualify as the worst day in human history. Hey, you forgot someone, you multi-limbed sacks of Jack's voice echoed through the empty corridor as the station's tremors knocked him sideways into a wall. The comms were dead. They couldn't hear him. Or more likely, they didn't want to. Jack pulled himself up, brushing off the strange, iridescent dust that seemed to be falling from everywhere. Nexus 9, the pride of the Galactic Confederation's deep space network and supposedly the most advanced outpost in 3 sectors, was falling apart like wet cardboard. Station status report, he muttered, more out of habit than hope. To his surprise, a flickering holographic display sputtered to life on his wrist unit. Critical systems failure. Evacuation protocol Alpha 7 initiated. Station integrity at 37% and declining. Estimated time to catastrophic failure, 8.7 standard cycles. Well, that's just peachy. Jack sighed, running a hand through his disheveled brown hair. At least I've got almost 9 days to contemplate my imminent demise. As the only human engineer among a crew of 43 aliens from the Confederation's most evolved species, Jack had always been the odd one out. Humans were the new kids on the Galactic block, only admitted to the Confederation 70 years ago, and still regarded with a mix of curiosity and condescension. Their technology was quaint, their methods unpredictable, their bodies inefficiently designed. Jack made his way to the central hub, where most of the emergency supplies would be stored. The artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, causing him to bounce off the ceiling before crashing back to the floor. I swear if I survive this, I'm filing the galaxy's biggest workplace safety violation. The central hub was a disaster zone. Storage units had been emptied. Emergency equipment stripped. Jack found one forgotten medkit and a container of what passed for emergency rations among the Zolaxians, a gelatinous purple substance that smelled like gym socks but allegedly contained all nutrients required for sentient life. They took everything, Jack muttered, realization dawning on him. Everything except what they thought a human couldn't use. He activated his personal log recorder, a habit from his academy days. A1 on what the hell just happened. Nexus 9 station experienced catastrophic systems failure at 0600 hours. All alien crew evacuated. This human engineer was left behind. Initial assessment suggests this wasn't an oversight. The evacuation was too orderly, too complete. Jack paused, watching as another ceiling panel crashed to the floor nearby. They knew the station was failing, and they left me here to die with it. The question is, why would the Confederation sacrifice a multi-trillion credit installation and one dashingly handsome human? Something doesn't add up, and I've got approximately 8.7 days to figure it out. A loud metallic groan echoed through the station, followed by the hiss of escaping atmosphere from somewhere distant. Correction, possibly less than 8.7 days. Jack took inventory of his personal gear, standard-issue engineer's toolkit, wrist computer with downloaded station schematics, an emergency oxygen supply good for maybe 24 hours, and the universe's most depressing protein bar. As he contemplated which section of the station might still have functioning life support, the lights flickered and the main power grid failed completely. Emergency lighting cast an eerie red glow through the corridors. Perfect, Jack muttered. Because this situation wasn't dramatic enough already. He made his way towards the engineering section, hoping to find some clue about what had caused the failure and whether it could be fixed. Along the way, he passed quarters that had been vacated in a hurry, personal possessions abandoned, food still on tables. This wasn't a gradual evacuation, he noted into his recorder. This was a full-blown everyone get the hell out now situation. But the warning systems never activated. Someone knew this was coming, and they didn't sound the alarm until they were ready to leave. The engineering bay doors were locked down with quarantine protocols. It took Jack nearly an hour to bypass the security systems, using techniques that would have given the station's security chief an aneurysm. When the doors finally hissed open, Jack understood why the crew had fled. Oh, he said simply, staring at the pulsating mass of what appeared to be luminescent, living crystal growing from the station's central power core. That's definitely not supposed to be there. Nexus 9 wasn't just any station. As Jack explored the gradually disintegrating structure over the next 24 hours, he came to fully appreciate just how royally screwed he was. Day 2 of being marooned on this glorified space coffin, Jack recorded, carefully stepping over a section of floor that had simply dissolved. Turns out Nexus 9 isn't just an ordinary deep space outpost. It's a waypoint station, controlling the only stable wormhole junction between the Andromeda Arm and Central Core sectors. He paused to examine a system's display that still functioned intermittently. Without this station, interstellar travel time between major Confederation regions jumps from days to months. Hundreds of worlds will be isolated, thousands of supply chains disrupted, and one Jack Tanner dies alone in the void. A sudden static discharge from a nearby console made him jump. Human, present, the fragmented voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Hello?" Jack called out, scanning the room. "Is someone still here?" A holographic interface sputtered to life, taking the form of a spherical collection of light points that coalesced into a vaguely humanoid shape. Mira multiform interface responsive algorithm. The apparition stuttered. "Station AI damaged." "You're the station's AI?" Jack approached the flickering entity. "I thought Confederation protocol was to download or destroy AIs during evacuation." Protocol attempted failed core crystal infection prevented complete transfer. The hologram flickered wildly. Human engineer Jack Tanner not evacuated, why? That's the million-credit question, isn't it? Jack sighed. "I'm thinking they didn't want me to see whatever that crystal thing is in the core. Any idea what we're dealing with here?" Mira's form stabilized slightly. "Unknown entity, organic and inorganic properties. Growth unprecedented. Integrating with core systems, unable to purge." "Great, so we've got some kind of techno-organic parasite eating the station from the inside out." Jack ran a hand through his hair. "And let me guess, the Confederation big brains couldn't figure out how to stop it?" 17 species attempted containment failed. Estimated time until complete system failure now 7.2 sevels. Jack paced the room, thinking aloud. So the most advanced engineers in the galaxy couldn't fix it, and rather than admit defeat, they evacuated and left the token human behind to take the fall when this place eventually blows up. He stopped suddenly, a grin spreading across his face. "You know what? Screw them. I'm going to fix what 17 so-called superior species couldn't." Probability -OF success -0.0087%, Mira calculated helpfully. "Never tell a human the odds," Jack laughed. "Especially not a human engineer with nothing to lose." He moved to a workstation and began pulling up station schematics. "Mira, I need everything you have on the station's core systems, the nature of this crystal infection, and all the failed containment measures they tried." "Data-limited systems failing," the AI warned. "Then we'd better work fast." Jack cracked his knuckles. "Show me what they tried first, and why it failed." For the next several hours, Jack pored over the data. The crystal entity seemed to feed on energy, growing faster the more power was directed to containment fields. Cutting power only slowed growth temporarily. Physical removal attempts saw the crystal regenerate faster than it could be excised. "They approached it all wrong," Jack muttered eventually. "They kept treating it like an invasion to be fought, not a system to be understood." He pulled up a detailed scan of the crystal's structure. "Mira, this formation pattern, it's responding to the station's energy oscillation frequency. It's not random growth, it's following a pattern dictated by the station itself." "Assessment accurate," Mira confirmed, unknown how to utilize information. Jack stood up, stretching his tired muscles. "I'm going to need to get closer to that thing. The maintenance tunnels should give me access to the core without going through the main engineering bay." Warning: proximity to entity results in neural disruption in all tested species. "Yeah, well," Jack grinned, gathering his tools. They haven't tested humans yet, have they? Day 4 of operation. Don't die horribly, Jack recorded, his voice echoing in the maintenance shaft. Good news, I'm not dead yet. Bad news, everything else. Jack had spent the past 2 days attempting to reach the core, battling failing systems and structural integrity issues. His hair was matted with sweat, face streaked with grease and the strange, glittering dust that seemed to be everywhere now. The crystal entity has grown by approximately 40% since I first observed it. At this rate, it'll reach critical mass in another 3 days, not the 7 Mira originally calculated. He paused, catching his breath in the increasingly thin air. Life support is down to 31% capacity station-wide. I've managed to seal off 3 habitation modules and redirect remaining power to maintain atmosphere there, but it's a band-aid on a severed limb. A small metallic object suddenly whirred around the corner, hovering at eye level. It resembled a silver softball with a single blue optical sensor and tiny manipulator arms. "Oh!" Jack exclaimed, nearly falling backward. "What are you supposed to be?" The drone beeped and chirped in a sequence that somehow managed to sound indignant. "Maintenance units," Mira's voice came through Jack's wrist comm. "The station has 712 autonomous repair drones programmed for basic functions." 700? Jack stared at the little machine. "Why haven't I seen any until now?" "Protocol, all units enter hibernation during evacuation to conserve power." Jack reached out slowly, and to his surprise, the drone floated closer, allowing him to examine it. "But this one's active?" "Unknown anomaly. 53 units remain active despite protocols." A slow smile spread across Jack's face. "Mira, can these drones be reprogrammed, given new directives?" "Affirmative, with engineering override codes." "Which, as the only engineer left on this station, I have." Jack gently patted the drone, which emitted a series of pleased-sounding chirps. "I think I just found my workforce." Over the next 12 hours, Jack located and reprogrammed the active maintenance drones. He named the first one Buddy, and the rest followed in sequence: Pal, Chum, Sport, and so on until he ran out of synonyms for friend and started using Earth dog names. The drones proved invaluable, accessing areas too damaged for Jack to reach safely and retrieving equipment from abandoned sections of the station. They seemed to have developed a peculiar loyalty to Jack, often bringing him objects they thought might be useful. Some were, many weren't. Day 5, Jack recorded, now set up in a makeshift command center. "I've made a breakthrough. The crystal entity isn't just consuming energy, it's converting it. The station's power core uses a quantum fluctuation matrix, and the crystal has somehow tapped into the subatomic resonance field." Around him, drones busily ferried components back and forth as he constructed what looked like a massive tuning fork attached to a modified power converter. The Confederation engineers tried to destroy or contain it. But what if it's not a parasite at all? What if it's a symbiote? Something that could work with the station's systems rather than against them. At a nearby workbench, Buddy and 2 other drones were carefully assembling a device according to schematics Jack had drawn up. The crystal responds to harmonic frequencies. If my theory is correct, we can use sound waves, or more precisely, quantum harmonic oscillations, to communicate with it. Tell it to grow in ways that support the station's systems rather than disrupting them. Jack paused, wiping sweat from his brow. The station temperature had risen to uncomfortable levels as environmental controls continued to fail. Of course, the entire plan depends on getting close enough to the core to install the harmonic resonator, and then hoping a crystal that's eating a space station wants to have a friendly chat. 6 hours later, Jack stood at the entrance to the core chamber, protected only by a makeshift radiation suit constructed from emergency materials. The crystal had grown enormously, pulsating with internal light that shifted through colors not entirely visible to the human eye. "Here goes nothing," he muttered, stepping into the chamber with Buddy hovering anxiously at his shoulder. The effect was immediate, a pressure in his mind like a migraine multiplied by 1,000 voices that weren't voices, screaming in frequencies that humans shouldn't be able to hear. Jack gritted his teeth and pushed forward. "Mira," he gasped through the comms, "initiate harmonic sequence alpha." The resonator in his hands began to hum, emitting waves that rippled visibly through the air. The crystal's pulsing slowed, then gradually synchronized with the device's rhythm. "It's working," Jack whispered in disbelief. "It's actually working." The pressure in his mind eased, transforming into something almost like curiosity. The crystal's glow shifted, concentrating on Jack. "That's right," he said, as if talking to a skittish animal. "We can work together. The station doesn't have to die, and neither do I." Buddy chirped encouragingly as Jack carefully attached the resonator to a stable section of the core housing. The crystal extended a tendril, not toward Jack as he feared, but toward the device, touching it gently. Station-wide, lights that had been dimmed or dead flickered back to life. The constant tremor stilled. Environmental systems surged back online. Life support restoration at 67%, and climbing, Mira announced, her voice suddenly clear and stable. "Station integrity stabilizing." Jack staggered back, exhausted but triumphant. "Day 5, he recorded, voice hoarse but proud. "First major victory. We're not dead yet. Basic life support restored. And I've made a new friend who's eager to help." He looked up at the crystal, now glowing with a steady, comfortable blue light. Turns out all it needed was someone who would listen instead of attack. Jack didn't hear the ship's dock. He was too busy in the maintenance tunnels and working with Buddy and the drone squad to reinforce structural weak points that the crystal which he'd taken to calling Crystalline Unified Network Terminal, or CUNT, for short, because he was tired and it amused him hadn't yet learned to support. It was Mira who alerted him, her voice coming through clearer than ever on the restored comms system. "Jack, multiple Confederation vessels have docked at Emergency Airlock 7. Armed personnel boarding." Jack froze, hydrospanner in hand. "How many?" "3 ships. Approximately 20 individuals, primarily Vexarian, with representatives from Galactic Council species." "Vexarian? That's just great." Jack sighed. The Vexarians were essentially evolved lizards with superiority complexes and an obsession with protocol. They also held majority control over Confederation military forces. "It's time to face the music," he muttered, making his way toward the airlock. "Buddy, keep the repair work going. Mira, lock down the core section. No one gets in without my authorization." By the time Jack reached the main promenade, the Confederation team had already spread out, scanning equipment and weapons at the ready. At their center stood an imposing Vexarian in the midnight blue uniform of a fleet commander, his scaled skin a deep crimson that indicated high rank and pure bloodline. "Human," the commander called out, voice resonating with the characteristic hiss of his species. "Identify yourself." Jack leaned casually against a bulkhead, fully aware of how he must look filthy, exhausted, but very much alive in a station that should have been his tomb. Engineer Jack Tanner, formerly of Nexus 9 station crew, currently acting station director, since everyone else took an unscheduled vacation. He offered a mock salute. "And you must be the rescue party. You're only about 5 days late, but hey, who's counting?" The commander's facial scales flattened in the Vexarian expression of displeasure. "I am Commander Thex Al of the Confederation Salvage Fleet. This station was declared unsalvageable and scheduled for destruction. We are here to retrieve critical technology before detonation." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Destruction? Funny, no one mentioned that part when they left me behind." A slender, blue-skinned Altarian stepped forward, scientific instruments in her 4 hands. "The humans survived? Fascinating. The crystal's neural disruption should have driven it insane within hours." "It is standing right here," Jack replied evenly. "And it would like an explanation for why it was abandoned on a failing station without warning." Thex Al and the scientists exchanged glances. The commander straightened to his full height, nearly 7 feet tall. The crystal entity was classified as a Class 1 contagion. Evacuation protocols required immediate departure with minimal alert to prevent panic. Your absence was regrettable." "Regrettable?" Jack laughed bitterly. "You left me for dead." "A necessary sacrifice. A gray-skinned bureaucrat from the back of the group interjected. The crystal entity had already defeated our best containment efforts. The station was lost. Better to lose one crew member than risk the entity spreading to an evacuation vessel. Jack pushed off from the wall, walking slowly toward the group. He noticed how several guards tightened their grip on their weapons. So you came back to salvage what you could and blow up the evidence of your failure? He gestured around at the functioning lights, the stabilized environment. Except there's a small problem with your plan. The station isn't failing anymore. The Altarian scientist's instruments beeped rapidly as she scanned the surroundings. Impossible. The entity was consuming the core matrix at an exponential rate. It was, Jack agreed, until I asked it nicely to stop. Silence fell over the group, broken only by the hum of scanning devices and the distant, normal sounds of a functioning space station. You communicated with the entity? Thexal's voice held disbelief. Turns out it's not a malevolent space parasite after all. It's a symbiotic crystalline network capable of integrating with our technology. It wasn't trying to destroy the station, it was trying to understand it. The scientist was practically vibrating with excitement. This confirms theories from the Regellian Academy. A silicon-based collective consciousness. Do you understand what this means? I understand, Jack said coldly, that your response to encountering an unknown life form was to abandon it and anyone who might have been contaminated, then return to blow it up. Thexal's scales rippled with what might have been embarrassment. The Confederation Council made what it believed was the only possible decision based on available information. And yet, Jack spread his arms. Here we are in a functioning station with an entity that's now helping maintain systems instead of destroying them. A tense silence filled the room as the implications sank in. The crystal remains dangerous, Thexal finally said. Our orders stand. We will recover critical technology and destroy the station. Jack crossed his arms. I don't think so, Commander. You are in no position to challenge Confederation authority, human. Jack smiled. Actually, I am. Mira, please show our guests the station's current status. Holographic displays activated around the promenade, showing the crystal's integration with station systems, the rapidly improving structural integrity, and most importantly, the restored wormhole controls. The Nexus 9 junction is operational again, Jack explained. The only stable wormhole connecting two major sectors of Confederation space. Without it, you're looking at economic collapse across 17 systems. He watched realization dawn on their faces. You need this station, and right now I'm the only one who can communicate with the entity keeping it functional. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to call off the demolition. Get me some proper supplies. And we're going to have a long conversation about the future of interspecies relations in this sector. Thexal's expression was unreadable, but the flaring of his nostril slits betrayed his anger. Finally, he tapped his communication device. This is Commander Thexal. Hold destruction protocols in abeyance. The situation has evolved. Smart decision, Jack nodded. Now, who wants to meet my new friend? I don't care what your regulations say, Jack shouted, pounding his fist on the conference table. You can't just sever the connection now. 3 days had passed since the arrival of the Confederation team. What had begun as a tense standoff had evolved into an uneasy collaboration, with the scientists eagerly studying the crystal entity while Thexal maintained regular communication with Confederation headquarters. The news from those communications had not been good. The Council's decision is final, Thexal said, his voice carrying the weight of authority despite his obvious discomfort. The risk is deemed too great. The harmonic stabilizer you created will be removed, the crystal entity will be contained and transported to a research facility, and Nexus 9 will operate on conventional power systems, which won't work anymore. Jack gestured frantically to the holographic displays showing the station's integrated systems. The crystal has become part of the station's DNA. You can't just rip it out and expect everything to function. The Altarian scientist, Dr. Lasara, nodded in agreement. Commander, Engineer Tanner is correct. Our simulations indicate catastrophic failure if the entity is forcibly removed. Not our problem, growled a stocky draconian engineer who had arrived with the salvage team. The station was scheduled for destruction anyway. If it fails during the extraction process, we simply accelerate our timeline. Jack stared at them in disbelief. There are 3,000 ships currently using this waypoint. The wormhole junction is active. If the station fails while the junction is open, the resulting spatial tear could destabilize half the sector. Thexal's expression remained impassive. A calculated risk. Extraction begins in 3 hours. As the commander and his team filed out, Jack slumped into a chair, mind racing. Mira, what are our options? The AI's hologram appeared, now stable and fully formed. Limited, Jack. Commander Thexal has restricted my access to critical systems. The drones have been corralled in Maintenance Bay 3. Great. So they're going to rip out the crystal, potentially causing a disaster that could destroy half the sector, and they've hamstrung our ability to stop them. There is one possibility, Mira suggested, though it carries significant risk. I'm listening. The crystal entity has demonstrated an ability to communicate directly with you. If you were to enter the core and establish a full harmonic connection, you might be able to guide it through a controlled separation that wouldn't destabilize the station. Jack whistled. Except the last time anyone tried direct neural contact with the crystal, their brains turned to soup. Yes, Mira agreed. But you've already demonstrated unusual compatibility. Jack paced the room, weighing his options. Can we get a message to the crystal, warn it what's coming? Possible, through the harmonic resonator. But understanding may be limited without direct contact. His decision was made for him when alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Warning: unauthorized access to core containment. Harmonic disruption in progress. They're moving early. Jack sprinted for the door. Mira, I need a route to the core that avoids Confederation patrols. Calculating maintenance shaft 7B will take you within 30 meters. Buddy and 3 other drones have broken free and can meet you there. Jack raced through the station, the distant sound of energy weapons and shouting echoing through corridors. When he reached the designated maintenance shaft, Buddy was waiting, along with Fido, Rex, and Spot. Hey guys, Jack gasped, catching his breath. Ready to save the day? The drones chirped affirmatively, leading him through a series of narrow passageways that bypassed the main corridors. As they neared the core, the station began to shudder ominously. They've initiated separation. Mira's voice came urgently through the comms, crystal integrity destabilizing. Status of the wormhole junction? Jack asked, heart pounding. Active. 27 vessels currently in transit. Junction collapse imminent if destabilization continues. They reached the core access to find 2 Vixarian guards posted outside. Jack didn't hesitate. Buddy, distraction protocol. The small drone zoomed forward, erratically circling the guards' heads while emitting an ear-splitting series of beeps. As they swatted at it, Jack and the other drones slipped past into the core chamber. Inside was chaos. The crystal, once a harmonious blue, now pulsed angry red. Confederation engineers worked frantically at control panels, while Dr. Lacera shouted warnings that no one seemed to heed. Stop, Jack yelled. You're going to kill everyone in this sector. Thexal turned, his scales pale with stress. Engineer Tanner. You are not authorized. The station lurched violently, throwing everyone off balance. Warning klaxons blared from every console. Wormhole stability at 27% and falling. A technician shouted. Estimated collapse in 6 minutes. Jack pushed past them to the crystal. The harmonic resonator, where is it? Dr. Lacera pointed to a shattered device on the floor. They tried to disconnect it forcibly. The feedback pulse destroyed it. Idiots. Jack turned to Thexal. Commander, I need your authorization codes now. I can still fix this. What do you propose? Direct neural interface with the crystal. I'll guide it through a controlled separation that won't collapse the wormhole. Impossible. One of the engineers protested. Neural contact will kill you instantly. Maybe, maybe not. Jack locked eyes with Thexal. But right now, it's our only option. Another violent shudder ran through the station. A support beam crashed down nearby. Wormhole stability critical. 4 minutes to collapse. Thexal hesitated only a moment before making his decision. Do it, whatever you need. I need space and silence, Jack said, already moving toward the crystal. And somebody find me a neural interface headset. Dr. Lasara rushed forward with a device. This is experimental, but it should amplify the connection. Jack strapped it on, positioning himself before the frantically pulsing crystal. Everyone back. Mira, route all remaining power to core stabilization. The room cleared except for Thexal, who stood at the door. Engineer Tanner, he said, formal but sincere. Good luck. Okay. Jack nodded, then turned to face the crystal. All right, CUNT, he muttered. Time for some couples counseling. He placed his hands directly on the crystal's surface and activated the neural interface. The universe exploded behind his eyes. Voices, images, sensations beyond human comprehension flooded his consciousness. The crystal's panic, its confusion at the sudden attack, its desperate attempts to maintain the connection it had formed with the station. It's okay, Jack pushed the thought out, unsure if communication was even possible. I'm here to help. We need to separate temporarily, but not permanently. Do you understand? For a moment, there was only chaos. Then, gradually, a sense of recognition. Not words, but understanding. 3 minutes to wormhole collapse. We need to do this carefully, Jack projected. The wormhole, the space tunnel, needs to be stable. Too many lives depend on it. He felt the crystal's comprehension growing, felt it extending tendrils of awareness through his consciousness, learning and adapting at impossible speed. That's right, Jack encouraged, sweat pouring down his face from the strain. Like this. He visualized the process, a slow, deliberate separation, the crystal maintaining key connections while releasing others, a dance of energy rather than a tearing apart. 2 minutes. Pain lanced through Jack's body as the connection deepened. Blood trickled from his nose, but he maintained focus, guiding the crystal through the intricate process. Look at these readings, he heard Dr. Lasara gasp distantly. It's actually working. 1 minute to critical. Jack couldn't spare the attention to respond. His entire being was focused on the crystal, feeling its struggle, its determination, its growing understanding of what needed to be done. Wormhole stability increasing. Now at 42%, 53%, 67%. The crystal pulsed once, twice, then settled into a steady rhythm. Jack felt something almost like gratitude flowing through the connection before his world went black. Jack awoke to the sterile white ceiling of Nexus 9's medical bay and the concerned face of Dr. Lasara hovering over him. He's conscious. She called out, forearms simultaneously checking various medical instruments. Engineer Tanner, can you hear me? Unfortunately, Jack croaked, his throat raw. Any chance we could turn down the volume on existence for a bit? A familiar chirping sound came from beside the bed. Jack turned his head slightly to see Buddy hovering anxiously nearby. Hey, little guy. He managed a weak smile. Did we save the day? Rather spectacularly, came Commander Thexal's voice as he strode into the room. You've been unconscious for 26 hours. Jack attempted to sit up, immediately regretted it, and settled for adjusting his bed angle instead. The crystal? The station? Both stable, Lasara assured him. The separation was successful. The crystal entity has been contained, but not removed, existing in a sort of symbiotic equilibrium with the station's systems. And the wormhole? Fully operational, Thexal confirmed. In fact, efficiency has increased by 32% since the integration stabilized. Jack closed his eyes in relief. So I'm not fired? A strange sound emanated from Thexal, something Jack eventually realized was Vexarian laughter. Quite the contrary. The Confederation Council has been in emergency session since receiving our reports. That sounds ominous. For them, perhaps. Thexal's scales rippled with amusement. You've created quite the political firestorm, Engineer Tanner. Or should I say, Acting Director Tanner. Jack blinked. Come again? Dr. Lasara handed him a data pad displaying an official Confederation document. Emergency directive from the Council. You've been appointed interim director of Nexus 9 until a permanent solution can be found for station management. Which may take quite some time, Thexal added dryly, given that no species other than human has demonstrated the ability to communicate effectively with the crystal entity. Jack stared at the document in disbelief. They're putting me in charge? After they tried to blow me up along with the station? Politics, Thexal shrugged, a gesture he had clearly learned from humans. The alternative was admitting that 17 advanced species failed where one human succeeded. The Council finds it more palatable to frame this as a planned outcome. Jack laughed, then winced at the pain in his ribs. So what happens now? Now, Lasara said, checking his vital signs, you rest. Tomorrow there will be a formal ceremony installing you as director. Several council representatives have already arrived. And the crystal? Remains classified as a uniquely sensitive resource. Research teams are being assembled, but all work will be conducted under your supervision. After they left, Jack lay back in his bed, processing everything. Buddy settled onto a charging pad nearby, a comforting presence. Mira? He called softly. The AI's hologram appeared beside his bed. Yes, Director Tanner? How's our friend doing? The crystal entity appears content. It has established stable patterns throughout the station's secondary systems. Primary functions remain under conventional control as a safeguard. Jack nodded. And what's the Council not telling me? Mira's hologram flickered slightly. I have intercepted numerous communications between Council members. There is significant debate regarding your appointment. I figured as much, Jack sighed. Details? Several factions have emerged. The Vexarians, led by Admiral K. Thex, support your position, citing your unique connection with the crystal entity. The Arcturian delegation opposes, arguing that no single species should control such a strategic asset. And the rest? Opportunists, Mira replied, her tone sardonic. They wish to study both you and the crystal. The Tellarites specifically requested neural mapping of your brain activity during communication sessions. Jack groaned. So I'm the lab rat now. Not quite. Mira's hologram shifted, displaying a complex series of protocols. Commander Thexal anticipated these concerns. The formal appointment includes specific protections, no experimentation without your explicit consent, and full veto authority over all research initiatives. Thexal did that for me? The commander has been surprisingly advocative on your behalf. Jack smiled faintly. Maybe he likes me after all. His official statement cited your inexplicable but undeniable aptitude for crisis improvisation, Mira noted. I believe that translates to grudging respect. Buddy chirped in apparent agreement, hovering up from his charging pad to float near Jack's shoulder. The Council is most intrigued by the crystal's origins, Mira continued. Initial analysis suggests it predates the wormhole network itself. Jack closed his eyes, recalling the vast cosmos of memories he'd glimpsed within the crystal. It's ancient, Mira, older than any civilization we know. It's been traveling through space for millions of years, maybe more. Did it share this with you? Not exactly. It was more like Jack struggled to find the right words. Imagine having someone else's memories suddenly flood your mind, but without context. Fragments of stars being born, of cosmic events I can't even name. It was beautiful and terrifying. And now you're linked to it permanently, Mira observed. That's what they're afraid of, isn't it? Jack asked. The Council. They think I'm compromised. Mira's hologram shifted again. Their primary concern appears to be your unpredictability. You represent an unknown variable in a carefully balanced equation. Story of my life, Jack laughed weakly. Always the wrench in the works. A soft chime indicated someone at the door. Dr. Lasera entered again, this time accompanied by a figure Jack didn't immediately recognize, tall, willowy, with iridescent skin that seemed to shift between blue and green. Director Tanner, Lasera began formally. May I present Council Observer Nais Arna of the Thalassian Collective. The Thalassian inclined their head gracefully. Engineer Tanner, your accomplishment has resonated throughout Confederation space. Jack attempted to sit up straighter. Just doing my job. Your modesty is unnecessary. Nais Arna replied. I have reviewed the station logs. You risked your life to preserve what many would have destroyed out of fear. The crystal is alive, Jack said simply. It deserves the same consideration as any sentient being. Nais Arna's skin rippled in what Jack interpreted as approval. This perspective is why I requested to be the first council representative to meet with you. They produced a small device, placing it beside Jack's bed. This contains the full historical record of the Confederation's previous encounters with non-corporeal entities. Jack's eyes widened. There have been others? Few, and most ended poorly, Nais Arna admitted. Your success represents the first peaceful integration of such a being. I didn't exactly follow protocol, Jack pointed out. Precisely why your insights are invaluable. The Thalassian Collective believes your unorthodox approach may redefine our understanding of non-conventional life forms. After the Thalassian departed, Jack turned to Lasera. How much trouble am I really in? She adjusted his medication with one hand while checking readings with another. Politically, you've upended decades of established doctrine. Professionally, you're now perhaps the most sought-after expert in the Confederation. And personally? Lasera smiled, an expression she'd clearly practiced to put humans at ease. That depends on how you handle your new celebrity status. The station's communication systems have been flooded with interview requests from every corner of inhabited space. Jack groaned. Can't I just go back to fixing power couplings? I'm afraid those days are behind you, she replied. The crystal chose you, Jack. That connection has changed everything. Later that evening, after Lasera had finally left him to rest, Jack found himself unable to sleep. His mind kept returning to the moment of connection with the crystal, that instant of perfect understanding that transcended language. Mira, he called softly. The AI appeared immediately. Yes, Director? Can you patch me into the crystal's containment chamber? Just audio. Of course, there was a brief pause. Connection established. At first, Jack heard nothing but the faint hum of the station's systems. Then, gradually, a subtle pattern emerged, not quite sound, not quite thought, but something in between. The crystal was communicating, not with words, but with impressions that somehow translated themselves in Jack's mind. Gratitude, wonder, curiosity. You're welcome, Jack whispered. And thank you for not destroying us all. Amusement. Assurance. Jack smiled. Yeah, I guess we did figure it out together. Question. Anticipation. What happens next? Jack interpreted. That's a good question. I think we're going to learn a lot from each other. Agreement. Excitement. Caution. Don't worry, Jack assured the entity. I won't let them treat you like a specimen. We're partners now. The response came as a warm pulse that seemed to resonate within Jack's chest, trust, mingled with something like hope. Director Tanner, Mira interrupted gently. Your vital signs indicate you should rest now. Just one more minute, Jack requested, closing his eyes to better focus on the crystal's presence. As he drifted toward sleep, the crystal's communication grew more abstract, conveying visions of distant galaxies, ancient civilizations, and countless wonders beyond human comprehension. Jack realized that for all the challenges ahead, the politics, The research, the inevitable conflicts, he had been given an extraordinary gift, a window into a universe far more vast and wondrous than humanity had ever imagined. Tomorrow would bring ceremonies and responsibilities, questions and complications. But tonight, floating in the peaceful communion between human consciousness and ancient crystal, Jack Tanner, the reluctant hero of Nexus 9, felt something he hadn't experienced since first arriving at the station: the simple, profound joy of discovery. In the darkened medical bay, Buddy hovered protectively over his sleeping form, while across the station, wrapped in its specialized containment field, the crystal pulsed with a steady, harmonious rhythm that perfectly matched the beating of Jack's heart.